Yesterday, we did factoring out the GCF. So make sure that you have that completed from yesterday. And we are going to factor these few examples together so that we can do a few more. Something that's important is what's written up here. If the leading coefficient is negative, always factor out the negative. So our leading coefficient is the one that has the biggest exponent or highest degree. So you always factor out the negative if the leading coefficient is negative. So an example would be like here. Go ahead. I'm going to zoom in. It's in the right order. You're always supposed to do it with the variable biggest exponent first. So this one has an exponent, the second one doesn't. So it's in the right order. So what we need to do is factor out a negative. So when we do our GCF or GCD in our calculator, we're going to do 12 and 3. You can go ahead and put that in the calculator to find your GCF. So on here, we're going to factor out a negative, but in order to find our GCF, we can use our calculator like we did yesterday. And you can't put negatives in there when you do your GCF. So what you'll do is you'll go math, over to number, and then go to GCD, number 9. We can put in 12 and 3. So it is a 3. 3 divides both numbers evenly. So that is our GCF. Because the first number is a negative, we have to factor out a negative. So when we write our GCF here, we're going to go ahead and put a negative there, and it's 3. And then for the variable, we'd see if they both have the same variable. If they don't, then we don't include a variable at all. So this one has an A, this one doesn't. So our GCF is negative 3. So we go ahead and pull that out. When you pull it out front, you're going to divide every term by negative 3 so you can find out what's inside. So we're going to divide this by negative 3, divide this by negative 3. So you can only put the coefficients in the calculator. So that's your big numbers, negative 12 divided by a negative 3, positive 4. And then you have to keep your A. And then negative 3 divided by a negative 3 is a positive 1, so plus 1. So this is the same thing we were doing yesterday. The only difference or only new concept is taking out a negative if your first number has a negative on it. Okay, so go ahead and put your box around your answer, and we'll go on to the next one. Okay, let's look at the next one. This is in the correct order. So what I mean by correct order is your biggest exponent is first, and then it decreases from there. The first one is negative, so we know that our GCF is going to be a negative. But we can go ahead and do our GCF of 36 and 12. We can use the calculator. And so we do the GCD of 36 and 12. And it's 12. So whenever we write our GCF, we're going to put negative because the first term is negative, so negative 12. And then we look at our variable. They both have n in common. And whenever you do GCF, you choose the smaller exponent. So that would be just n. Because they both have n's, and the smaller is just regular n. So we'll go ahead and write that out front like this. We'll divide all the terms by negative 12n. Whenever you divide by a term, You're going to divide your numbers and then subtract your exponents. You can start by doing negative 36 divided by negative 12, positive 3. And then we subtract our exponents. We have n cubed and just an n. So you're going to subtract those. 3 minus 1 be n squared. You're taking 1 out. So if you take 1 out, you're left with 2. So it's n squared. And then this is negative 12n over negative 12n. Well, negative 12 divided by a negative 12 is 1. Then n over n cancels. So your n's cancel, your 12's cancel, and you're left with 1. So you wouldn't put negative 1, you'd put plus 1. And you have to have something in each spot. You can't just leave anything off. Let's look at the next one. This is in the correct order. You have a cubed and then you have a first power. So a negative is out front. So we will pull out a negative. So we're going to do GCF of 9 and 12. And if you're good at doing this in your head, you don't have to put it in the calculator. I just give you that option. So it is a 3. So whenever we find our GCF, we have to pull out a negative because the first term has a negative. So it's a negative 3. And then look at our variables. They both have x's, so you take the smaller variable. There's a cubed and there's a first power, so you just take an x. So our GCF is negative 3x. Negative 3x, parentheses. We're going to divide everything by negative 3x. So you're taking an x out. So if you have x cubed, then if you take 1 out, then you only have an x squared. Negative 9 divided by negative 3, positive 3. And then we're taking 1x out, so it's an x squared. In the second term, the x's are going to cancel. And then we can divide negative 12 divided by negative 3. Yep, it's a 4, so we're going to put plus 4. Let's look at the next one. Negative 60, 60n squared, plus 50n cubed. This is not in the correct order. We have to reorder it before we do anything else. So you always want the biggest exponent first. So we're going to put in 50n cubed plus 60n squared minus 60. So make sure that you reorganize it before you begin anything else. And then we don't have a leading coefficient of a negative, so we don't pull out a negative. So now we just need to find the GCF of 50 and 60. So we want to look for that. All right, so we need GCF of 50 and 60. So see how we have 3 terms, but they're actually just 50 and 60. So that makes it a little bit easier. So we want to know what divides 50 and 60 evenly. Yeah. Our leading coefficient is not negative, it's positive. And then they don't all have an n. So our GCF is just 10. So we put 10 out front and we divide everything by 10. So 50 divided by 10. But we got to keep our variable and exponent. 60 divided by 10. And negative 60 divided by 10. So we are done. All right, next one. 81n squared, and then we have a negative 36 in it. Oh, it's r. And then negative 18. Okay, it's in the right order. So see how we have a squared, a first power, and no powers at all. So we don't have to reorganize. So we do need to find the GCF. So I would find it up 2 and see if it equally divides another one. So we can do math. Does 18 equally divide 36? No, it doesn't. So 18 will not evenly divide 81, so it's just a 9. So if you would have done 18 instead, it would have given, oh, it's also that. But then if you do 36, you get 18. But 18 is not the other one, so you're looking for the least. So it's actually 9. No variables in common, so we're going to do a 9 here. We need to divide everything by 9. So 81 divided by 9 is 9. Got to keep our variable. Negative 36 divided by 9, negative 4. And negative 18 divided by 9 is negative 2. So on the ones that just have a number as our GCF, it's actually pretty easy. We don't have to worry about any variables or anything like that. All right, let's look at the next one. We have n squared, negative 6n, 5. So this is like a 1. So GCF of a 1, a negative 6, and a 5. Anytime 1 is what your GCF has where you're finding, you can't find anything. Your GCF would just be 1. And then they don't all have n's, so we can't do anything else. No common variables either. So if you have a GCF of 1, no common variables, you can't factor it. It's done. We are going to learn more on factoring, stuff like this, but for now, we are not going to factor anything, no GCF. So we can do prime. So this is just a rare one that you'll have every once in a while where you don't have a GCF. Nothing is in common at all. So yesterday we talked about that being called prime. We cannot factor it. Yep. So let's keep on rolling. I want to get done with these two. All right, let's look at this next one, 63, 49, and 21. So we want to see 63 and let's do 49, 7. So once you find one of them, then you see, can the other one be equally divided by 7? And it can. So once you find that, then you can go ahead and write GCF equals 7. And then we look and see if they have any common variables. We have M6, M5, and just M. We have the M in common. So you take your smallest M, so it's an M. Because they all have at least an M. So as long as they all have at least an M, you can factor that. So this will be 7M. Divide by 7M all the way through. Like that. So go ahead and divide that. So that would be 9 because 7 times 9 gives us 63. M6 over M. If we have 6 M's, but we factor one out, we're left with 5. And then negative 49 divided by 7, negative 7. And then if we have 5 of them, but one of them's taken out, we're left with 4. And then negative 21M, these M's are going to cancel. Just negative 21 divided by 7. Put it in the calculator if you need to. Negative 3. Then we're done. We don't have any variables because they canceled out. We had an M divided by M, which means they canceled. Let's look at the next one. want you to go ahead and find your GCF of 18, 24, and 21. Don't say it out loud. Okay, so we look here, and if I do 18 and 24, I get 6. But then I check and see, does 16 divide 21 evenly? No. So that means I need to find a different one. Actually, 3 is our GCF. Then I look and see, do they have any variables in common? And they don't. It's not 6 because it doesn't, I can't even talk. It doesn't divide it evenly. Evenly means without decimal. Okay, so 3 is our GCF. So I divide everything by 3. 18 divided by 3 is 6. Negative 24 divided by n is 8, or negative 24 divided by 3 is 8. And negative 21 divided by 3 is 7. So these don't have anything in common anymore. Okay, the assignment yesterday that we started, you're going to finish part of that. There are some that I'm not going to make you do. I'm not going to make you do 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, or 19 and 20. So basically, 1 through 8, 11, 12, 13, and then 17, 18. Make sure you finish all of those. Y'all can help each other.